What is going on, y'all? Gamers going here today with a NFL mock draft, the full first round. We're going to go for it. This mock draft will feature trades. It will feature a lot of different things. There will be at least one or two more videos prior to the NFL draft. We're about a week or 2 weeks out. It's the 14th. Draft starts on the 26th. So content for that's definitely going to start picking up. I'm going to do a lot of content around the NFL draft once it gets underway. But here we go with round one, pick one, the Chicago Bears. My Chicago Bears are on the clock. Now, I already did Bears video, created a lot of controversy. A lot of people were like, why did he say Caleb Williams has big shoes to fill? What quarterback in Chicago history has won over the locker room the same way Justin Fields has? Regardless of whether or not Justin Fields panned out to be a superstar, there's still big shoes to fill in terms of that. Caleb Williams, though, he's the guy. Caleb Williams, I think, is going to be a very good QB. I think he is going to come in. He's going to bring kind of that star power that Chicago has never seen. And it'll be a matter of whether or not Chicago can build around that, which is going to start in this draft. But Caleb Williams at number one is a no-brainer. Has to be a QB after the Fields trade. It can't be Drake May. It can't be Jaden Daniels. It can't be J.J. McCarthy. It's got to be Caleb Williams here at number one for the Bears. Commanders. I don't know if the rumors are true, but apparently they were trying to trade up to number one at one point. Which means they were looking at Caleb Williams. They think we're taking Caleb Williams. So that puts them in the market for a quarterback. I mean, obviously, we know Sam Howell's no longer going to be there. But it's really finding out who they think is that second best QB in the class. Drake May, obviously, last two seasons have been spectacular. He kind of has that more traditional 6'4" kind of guy. Has a lot of potential. Whereas right now, if you get somebody, maybe Jaden Daniels is a little bit better of a fit because I think he's going to be more impactful right away. Obviously, he has the potential to be somebody even more special with the running ability. He's a guy that can really stretch defenses, really make you work as a defense. And I think those are really the two guys you're going to look at. I don't think J.J. McCarthy falls into range here, but Jaden Daniels and Drake May both do. Ultimately, I do think it's going to be Jaden Daniels, well-deserved there after his Heisman run. Then we get to the Patriots, and this is where it starts to get interesting because I'm not convinced the Patriots are picking here. I'm not fully convinced they're going to pick here. The Patriots, they need a QB. Let's be honest. They need a QB. Whether it's Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, doesn't matter really. But could they trade down maybe? Because you're looking at the Cardinals, the Chargers. Those are teams that aren't drafting QBs. Could you trade down and maybe just take the remaining of the lot at 6, 7, maybe even? I don't know why the Titans would trade up, but say 6 with the Giants. The Vikings are a team that could be looking to trade up. Ultimately, I don't think you toy around with missing out on the guy that you view as the guy for your team. Now, see, if Bill Belichick was there, I would 100% be taking J.J. McCarthy right now. But I think with their new coach, Gerard Mayo, I think you set him up for the most success by giving him the most chance at potential. I think Drake May has the most of the potential between him and J.J. McCarthy, whereas J.J. McCarthy's going to come in and you kind of know what you're getting right away. Drake May is somebody that kind of has that high upside that could be into something special for the Patriots. So we're going to go with Drake May there. Cardinals, they're on the clock. Rumors came out that they were not willing to trade this pick unless a boatload of stuff got thrown their way. Does that boatload come? I don't know. They said 3 first-round picks. Ultimately, I don't think that will be the case. And could you see maybe a team like the Vikings trade up here? Vikings are a team that they're going to need a QB. They might want to jump the Giants for J.J. McCarthy. So with that being said, I don't think the Cardinals are the ones. I don't. So Marvin Harrison is going to go here. We get to the Chargers. Chargers are the same thing. They could go receiver. I really like Malik Nabers here. They said Malik Nabers might slide a little bit. for some character concern questions. Does he slide much? Probably not. I still think he's a top 10 player regardless. But maybe you go Rome Odunze here, a little bit safer of the two. Um, if you're the Chargers, or maybe you don't even take a quarterback or a receiver here if you're the Chargers. But you got to take a receiver in the first round, and if they don't take a receiver here, I think that's a trade down with a team like the Vikings to move up here. Um, do we think the Vikings? I mean, they got the 2 picks. Let's say they get like that pick or something, and that's going to be the offer, and that's going to be accepted. But the Vikings are going to trade both of their picks to the Chargers here, and the Chargers are going to go on to pick 2 later times in this draft. But the Vikings, they're trading up for J.J. McCarthy. Now the top 4 QBs are off the board in the top 5. That leaves the Giants in a tough situation here. I don't really love receiver to the Giants. I know that's one of their needs. Giants, they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle here. I still think they need a QB. But ultimately, there's nobody here for them. Ultimately, there's nobody here for them that is worth their time at the QB. So maybe they do go receiver. And Rome Odunze, I think here is probably the safer of the two between Malik Nabers and if you're looking at it from a GM perspective, I would take Malik Nabers, but I'm trying to think like the GMs would, and if there are some question marks around Malik Nabers and kind of his ego and stuff like that, then maybe Rome Odunze is the guy. So we're gonna go Rome Odunze there at 6. Um, the Titans. This is another tricky one, man. This is another tricky one. I mean, you're probably looking here at an offensive lineman, Joe Alt. Um, probably the safest of the options. But do they actually go there? I don't know. Could this be the first time we see a defender go? Probably not, but who knows? One of these teams could be trading up. Team like the Titans might be inclined to do it, but ultimately I'm going to go Joe Alt. I don't know if the Titans are going to trade. I'm not confident enough. I'll just take the safest player there for the Titans. Then we get to the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are now on the clock, and they too are a team that should be pretty solid next year. I think they're gonna step it up. Kirk Cousins is gonna be there. They got Kyle Pitts. They got Drake London. I mean, they got some talent there on that Falcons roster. Defensive line is a option here. But if it's a defensive lineman here, I think it's got to be Dallas Turner. Is it going to be Dallas Turner? I don't know. I'm actually going to go off something I haven't seen. I'm going to give him Malik Nabers here. It's just kind of the thing that they fall into your lap. Too good of a player to pass up on. If he's there to take the shot. Now the Bears, this is going to be a tricky one also. I mean, you're looking at a team that, I mean, not necessarily needs to trade this pick, but you got 4 picks this draft. If there's a candidate for a pick to be traded, probably number 9. But who's moving up and what for what? I mean, the best receiver, Malik Nabers, just went off the board. Somebody's not going to be probably trading up for Brock Bowers. I doubt it. And then maybe you're looking for somebody to trade up for their pick of the litter there with the first defensive player off the board, whether that's going to be Laiatu Latu, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, or maybe even we go to the defensive tackles, which I think have a good chance, Johnny Newton and Byron Murphy. I think those are probably what you're trading up for. Maybe a corner. But realistically, I don't know if there's going to be a trade there for the Bears. And if there's no trade there for the Bears, you're obviously drafting Caleb Williams. Do you want to go get Brian Thomas, which I wouldn't mind at 9. I know his PFF rating is lower, but ultimately we're actually going to go edge rusher. And now I do know of the kind of the concerns with Laiatu Latu. Is his health bill clean? I'm not fully sure. Dallas Turner, kind of that freak athlete. We see one of these guys every year. Just an absolute high ceiling guy. If he pans out, he's probably the best edge rusher on this class. But Laiatu Latu is probably the most polished of them all. So I'm going to go with Laiatu Latu to play opposite of Montez Sweat for the Bears. Then we get to the Jets, Jets. Receivers in play, but I don't think it's a receiver. Tight end is in play, and I actually don't mind tight end here for them. Because I think one of these middle tier teams is going to take the gamble on the tight end in these middle 20 or 10 to 20 range on Brock Bowers. And could it be the Jets? I mean, the Jets, they have Aaron Rodgers. They're going to need somebody to catch the ball. Do they go receiver? Brian Thomas. Ultimately, though, I think you got to get tackles. I mean, first season in New York, immediately Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. Now, is that the fault of the tackles? Probably not fully, but you need to try to protect that man. And Talius Fuaga is probably the best guy left. We're going to go with Talius Fuaga there at number 10. Chargers, I'm not going to talk any more about it. Brock Bowers, I said he's going to go to that 10 to 20 range. This is a team that needs playmakers. This is a team that needs to offer weapons to Justin Herbert. This is a team that has a lot of needs, tight end being one of them. Brock Bowers, an elite tight end. He's going to be very good at the NFL level. We're taking him, some guy that you can even line up at kind of in that receiver role as well. Then we get to the Broncos. Broncos need a QB. That's no secret, but is there a QB here for them to be taking? I don't know. Who's going to trade up if it's not the Broncos? That's kind of what we're looking at here. This is tough. I mean, there are some edge rushers that are still here. Dallas Turner being an option. Team like the Eagles could do something. Yeah. I don't know what I want to do here. I would say the Seahawks, but they normally don't trade up. Do you think the Eagles have enough to even trade up? No, they really don't. They really do not. Forget it. Maybe we're going to try something crazy, something you haven't seen. We'll have an Eagles trade up. An Eagles trade up for number 12. We're going to force that trade. Draft a player. And we are going to take Dallas Turner here for the Eagles. They've been known to trade up for their guys, and Dallas Turner might be one of those guys. They love to draft from the big schools, Georgia, Bama, all of those. Dallas Turner is going to be there for them. So they move up. They get Dallas Turner after he kind of gets into that kind of the range that he's being predicted in. They want to get in early on him, and Dallas Turner's there. Then we get to the Raiders. Raiders are a tricky one. They're a tricky one. They have a lot of needs. Corner could be a play here. They could be looking at an edge. Ultimately, though, I think they still got to go QB. I know that they might not love the value at QB here, but one of these QBs is going to go. Is it Bo? Is it Michael Penix? I'm leaning Bo Nix here at 13. So Bo Nix to the Raiders. Then we get to the Saints. The Saints, they need a tackle. They need some receivers. Obviously, Michael Thomas is now a left receiver. Brian Thomas could be an option here. I'm not in love with it, but I do think an offensive tackle here is a great value. Then I'm actually taking Olu. I'm not taking Troy Fautanu. I'm taking Olu. Olu, a guy that could have been much higher if he had a better combine, but ultimately didn't. Olu is a top tier tackle. I think you need to have him kind of higher still. I don't think he's gonna have that kind of that fall that PFF is. I mean, I think he's gonna kind of stay up towards the top half of the draft. I don't think he's gonna slide past the 15, 16s range. So we're gonna keep him in there at number 14 to the Saints. Then we get to the Colts. Colts receiver Brian Thomas obviously in play, but this is where I'm going to have my boy Quinyon Mitchell go. I think he is the best corner in the draft. So we are going to secure that for the Colts, a team that is in need of some help there in the secondary. Now, this is another team, the Seahawks, trade down candidates. But who are you trading up for here is kind of the question. Johnny Newton's there. Byron Murphy's there. Troy Fautanu's there. Even JPJ is going to be there. These are all guys that I think would go kind of in that range. But you're going to need to find somebody that wants to make that trade. And the good thing is, I do think a team like the Steelers, who are coming up here soon, obviously, two new QBs, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, they need to find pass protectors for him. And I'm actually going to go with the trade up here to secure, instead of the offensive tackle, we're going to secure Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon. It's kind of a one center draft. You don't want to be the one missing out, especially if you're a needed center. It's a lot more difficult to find a center than it is to find a tackle. So you kind of got to get that position secured. And even if you look at this tackle class, you can find guys on day 2, day 3 that can Kingsley. You can find kind of guys here. Isaiah Adams is another guy I really like. But you can find guys around there that are going to be solid NFL players. So I do think you kind of got to go with center when it's kind of the most value there, in terms of like positional and like kind of what the drop off is. And I mean, it's hard to figure out the center position. So you got to get it done when you can. Jaguars, I really love corner here. I would have had them taking Quinyon Mitchell if he's here. Do I think they're going Cooper DeJean, Terrion Arnold? I think those are kind of the two names. But edge rusher here, with Jared Verse still being on the board, it's hard to pass up. Especially they're definitely going to have work done on him in the state of Florida. To me, it's got to be Jared Verse here. It's got to be Jared Verse to the Jaguars. Now, the Bengals are in an interesting spot because I think they would be a team that would love if Brock Bowers slid, but ultimately the Chargers took him. He ain't there. So what do they do? I don't really love them picking here. I don't. I think Brock Bowers right here is the obvious choice. But then after that, what did they go and do? Now, I don't want to predict too many trades, so I am going to stick and pick, but I think I'm probably leaning towards the tackle way, and I think we're just going to give them. Do I think it's going to be J.C. Latham or Troy Fautanu? I don't know. J.C. Latham. I mean, you look at him, 3 years, really good production, 6'6", beast, 21 years old. Troy Fautanu. I mean, you're going to look at him, 6'4". 23 years old, slightly older, obviously. 3 solid years of production. I think you got to go with J.C. Latham just for the youth there. So we're going to stick with J.C. Latham at 18. Then we get to the Rams. Now, this is one that I think would trick some people because I think everybody here is probably going to be like, oh, well, they could go corner, they could go QB, maybe a tackle. I'm actually going to go off on a bold prediction here, and I'm going to say they're going to jump in on Byron Murphy. I think he is going to ultimately be the top DT coming out of the draft, even though I love me some Johnny Newton being from Illinois. But ultimately, I think Byron Murphy will be the top DT on the class, and so he is going to go to the Rams there at 19. Seahawks are now finally back on the clock. Obviously, we saw them pass on JPJ. We saw them pass on Jared Verse. But now it is their turn to jump in. And I think this is where we could see somebody make kind of a jump. And I think that guy could be a guy like Chop Robinson. Chop Robinson, an absolute freak. He is somebody that is going to be a very good NFL player right away. It's just a matter of whether or not he can get to that second tier. I think he's going to be very impactful. I think he's going to be a day one starter. But does he have kind of that tier where he's going to be a dominant player, or is he just going to be a really good player? But Chop Robinson here at 20 might seem a little early, but I think he's going to be somebody that you can definitely watch out for. There's a lot of upside there, and we're going to go with him there. Then we get to the Dolphins. Dolphins are a team. Would love Brock Bowers here. Would love him, but he ain't there. So maybe we're looking at defense. Maybe we're looking at offense. Ultimately, you need to fix out some of that offensive line. Troy Fautanu is still there. Slightly older than J.C. Latham, but I still think you got to take Troy Fautanu here if he's there. The Broncos. Broncos earlier, they traded down. And that was with Philadelphia. And Philadelphia traded up so they could get Dallas Turner. Okay. Broncos, QB spot, does it go Michael Penix? Kind of, maybe at this range you start thinking about it. Is it going to be Michael Penix, though? Is it going to be Michael Penix? Is there somebody that maybe one of these teams might want to trade up for? I mean, you look at like a team like the Bills. A team like the Bills, they could be potentially interested in trading up. I mean, Brian Thomas is still on the board, and you know what? I've convinced myself. I'm gonna figure out a trade here for the Bills to move up. The Bills are gonna be moving up with the Broncos. We're just gonna make that. But we don't know what the exact price of the picks are gonna be. But we're gonna have the Bills trade up so that they can secure Brian Thomas before he gets off the board. So Brian Thomas goes at 22. I think that's probably pretty good because tight end Brock Bowers to the Chargers, they almost got another one. But ultimately here, with the guys on the board, I think it's got to be Terrion Arnold. I think it's got to be Terrion Arnold. I think he is the best corner left. Cooper DeJean obviously having some injury concerns. Does his bill come back clean? Maybe. If you aren't really too concerned with what you saw to Cooper DeJean, maybe he's above Terrion Arnold. But ultimately, Terrion Arnold is here, and Cooper DeJean is still on the board for somebody else. Cowboys, they're going to be punching themselves. Brian Thomas just got off the board. I would have loved that for them. He ain't there. But Cooper DeJean still there. You need help in that secondary. I think Cooper DeJean fits that bill. So back-to-back corners there. So we're starting to see the corner run go. The Packers, now they're on the board. Some offensive linemen could be an area of interest here. Amarius Mims, absolute beast of a human being. Look at him, 6'7", 21 years old, 340. That's a guy I would want on my offensive line. Graham Barton, another guy that I think could be very solid in the NFL, 6'5", 21, 314. I mean, there's a lot of guys in this draft on that offensive line that could be pretty good players. But is it Graham Barton? Is it Amarius Mims? I'm going to go with Mims, just a bigger guy to throw out there. Buccaneers. I've been trying to convince myself whether or not I think this is going to happen. I think Jalen Wright would be the guy if anybody does go. I'm trying to convince myself if I really think that a QB or a running back is going to go. Or going to convince myself that we go a whole first round without a linebacker going. Peyton Wilson, maybe a little bit more likely than Jalen Wright. I'm going to go with the gamble here. I'm going to say the linebacker is drafted in a team like the Buccaneers that definitely need a linebacker or two or maybe even three with the Buccaneers. Peyton Wilson needs to be that guy. Get the top linebacker off the board. Then we go to the Cardinals. Obviously, we had them take Marvin Harrison here. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I think they got to go defense. And with the way the board's fallen, it's just a matter of do they go corner, do they pretty much my question is going to be, is it Nate Wiggins or is it Jer'Zhan Newton here? And I think ultimately it's got to be Nate Wiggins if you are the Cardinals. You need help in that secondary. Nate Wiggins, I think, is going to end up being very solid in the NFL. Kind of a little bit on the thinner side, so you will have to maybe add some weight once showing up on the NFL team. But I think Nate Wiggins is going to be a very solid player at the next level. So Nate Wiggins, we're going to give him the 27th pick. If we get to the Broncos, they traded down again. The Broncos have traded down again. And this is where we're taking it. We're just going for the QB shot. Somebody had to take Michael Penix in the first round, get the extra year option. Michael Penix at 28, not a bad pick. It's just questions on whether or not his health bill comes back fully clean. If it does, I could see him going higher, but I ultimately think Michael Penix will go in the first round. So that's right. We have all of the QBs that everybody's been talking about, all of them going round one. Crazy to think about. The Lions, they are sitting here. Nate Wiggins here would have been beautiful for them. He ain't there. Quay McKinstry is. Another guy I really like and think Could still go first round, even though he slid off. It's in his Rakestraw. Interior offensive line, there's really nobody I would be considering here. I know Zach Frazier's ranked there. I don't think he's going to be in the first round ultimately. Edge rusher, obviously Chop Robinson, if he was there, could be an option, but he ain't there. So with that being said, I mean, just the value here. You need help defensive line. Johnny Newton, you just beautiful pick there for the Lions. Fell into their lap, kind of slid under the radar, and ultimately the Lions will reap the reward out of Johnny Newton. Then we get to the Baltimore Ravens, and they gotta go receiver. They gotta go receiver. But it's an Adonai Mitchell. I mean, Adonai Mitchell is somebody I think could turn out really good for him. Really, really good for him. Big guy. He's going to be a guy that's going to come in. You'll know pretty soon whether or not he can be that guy on the NFL team. So we're going to actually go Adonai Mitchell here. And then the 49ers. 49ers are up. They do need secondary help, and this is kind of a team where I kind of just expect like Kool-Aid McKinstry to fall. I mean, obviously Kool-Aid kind of projected in that late first round, but if you look at Kool-Aid's kind of the history of Kool-Aid, at one point he was up there with like, I think, the highest he ever got was like projected sixth. You get a top 10 talent that kind of slid off the radar a little bit to back into the first round. I think you got to do it. 49ers, they go get Kool-Aid. And then the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs, man, what do they do? That's a great question. I mean, they need receiver help. Ladd McConkey's sitting there. Troy Franklin's sitting there. I wouldn't even be surprised here if it's Xavier Worthy, burner speed. But ultimately, Xavier Worthy might not be the kind of guy you want. You look at a little bit more drops there from Xavier Worthy. How reliable are the hands with Xavier Worthy? Where maybe you go like a Ladd McConkey, and Ladd only had 2 drops, and he's probably not going to have huge target numbers, but he kind of is able to play in that range, that short to middle range, and really give Patrick Mahomes a kind of a go-to guy underneath. And I think Ladd McConkey kind of fits the bill perfectly for the kind of receiver that Patrick Mahomes would be looking for. I mean, they have a plethora of issues with their receivers to begin with. So I do expect them to definitely draft more than 1, maybe 2, maybe even 3 receivers in this class. I mean, there's a lot of need there for a receiver for the Chiefs, so it's got to be a receiver. And Ladd McConkey sitting there, I think you got to go. I think you got to go with Ladd McConkey. So there you have it. That's the first round. We'll go back over it real quickly, and we'll get on out of here. But thank you for watching. Before we go and kind of not grade the draft, but look at it. So we have, I mean, we'll just kind of go over the highlights. We have 4 of the top 6 quarterbacks going inside the top 10. We have Rome Odunze going before Malik Nabers. Kind of, I think that's starting to become more and more likely. We got Quinyon being the first DB off the board. JPJ, first center off the board, first interior offensive lineman. We got Chop Robinson making a little bit of a jump into that first round. Byron Murphy, just love that fit there. We have Peyton Wilson jumping into the first round. Michael Penix makes it his way into the first round. Johnny Newton slides, but he does make it into the first round to the Lions. And then we see the kind of the trio of really good picks back to back to back of guys that kind of aren't getting the love I think they necessarily deserve in this draft process, but 3 really good players, Adonai Mitchell, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Ladd McConkey, 3 guys that I think at points in the season probably could have gone higher in the mock draft, but ultimately that's where they're sit. So I really like what I did here. I mean, let me know down below whether or not you agree. If you have any brilliant ideas. I mean, Brian Thomas to the Bills, I love that fit, especially after losing Stephon Diggs. But there's got to be some randomness. There's got to be some realistic, and that's kind of what the NFL draft usually looks like. So this is what we're gonna stick with. Dallas Turner, Eagles traded up, got their guy. But anyways, thank you for watching. I will see you guys later.